The door creaked open before Grant Ellison even stepped inside. He stood on the polished tiles of his private foyer, the wheels of his sleek black suitcase rattling softly behind him. He looked every bit the man who just closed a series of million-dollar deals across Europe, impeccable in a tailored white suit, a violet dress shirt, and a designer watch that cost more than a small car. Yet, nothing about his sophisticated appearance prepared him for what he was about to witness. He wasn't supposed to be back until Friday. A quiet smile touched his lips as he reached down and gently brushed the small teddy bear tied to his suitcase handle. Lucas's favorite. He hadn't seen his son in over 4 weeks. This was going to be a surprise, the kind that would light up those wide blue eyes and make up for all the lost time. He imagined Lucas charging into his arms, giggling, his little body a whirlwind of energy. Instead, as he walked to the kitchen doorway, his heart froze in his chest. There, by the sink, stood a woman he didn't immediately recognize. A black woman in a simple gray apron tied around her waist, a dark short-sleeve top underneath. Her shoulders trembled, and her head was lowered. She was crying, not softly or discreetly. It was a quiet breakdown that shook her to the bone. Wrapped tightly around her back, legs locked around her waist, was Lucas, his son, his only son. The boy's face was red and buried in the woman's shoulder as if she were the only safe place left in the world. He wasn't just hugging her. He was holding on for dear life. Grant took a stunned step forward. Lucas. Neither of them moved. His voice came out sharper now, a command honed in boardrooms. Lucas. The woman jumped, her head snapping around to reveal tear-streaked cheeks and wide, alarmed eyes. She looked at Grant as if she'd been caught stealing from a church. Lucas finally turned his face, wet with tears, his lips quivering. No, don't take her, he wailed, the words hitting Grant like a physical blow. I'm sorry, sir, the woman stammered, her voice tight and hoarse. He won't let go. Grant took another step. What is going on here? Who are you? I'm Nia Monroe, she said, trying to gently lower Lucas to the floor. The agency sent me last month when Ms. Rena quit. We spoke on the phone twice. Grant blinked, the name clicking into place. Yes, Nia. She had a soft voice on the phone and had sounded professional enough. He had approved her without much thought. He never expected this. Lucas was shaking now, clinging harder. Please, Daddy. Don't send her away. Please. She didn't do anything. Send her away? Grant repeated, bewildered. Why would I? I burned the rice, Nia whispered, the words laced with bitterness. That's why I'm crying. But not because of you. It's because Lucas told me he wished I was his mommy. She choked on the last word, the pain in her voice raw and real. Grant stared, unable to speak. I didn't ask for that, she continued, her voice trembling but firm. I didn't try to take anyone's place. He had nightmares, sir. Every night he called for someone, anyone, and there was no one but me. I sang to him, held him. He needed someone. Grant's stomach twisted into a cold, hard knot. He had left his son in the care of strangers. Cold, professional hands with no warmth, just schedules and silence. Ray, the previous nanny, had texted once about Lucas screaming in his sleep, but Grant had dismissed it as a phase. Now he realized it wasn't. Lucas was shaking his head violently, still begging through his sobs. She helps me breathe, Daddy. Nia looked away, trying to steady herself. I'm not asking to stay. I didn't know how deep I was in until he said that. The silence was deafening. Grant, a man who had conquered rooms full of executives and dominated boardrooms, was now speechless in his own home. His son, the center of his universe, was clinging to a maid he barely knew. And she, this stranger, looked more heartbroken than anyone Grant had ever seen. I thought I was doing the right thing, he said under his breath. Working, building something for him. Money doesn't sing to a child at night, Nia said quietly, or hold their hand after a bad dream. Lucas finally slid down but stayed pressed to her side. Grant's voice cracked. And what are you to him now? Nia paused, her gaze meeting his. Safe. Grant stood still, his white suit glowing in the soft kitchen light. The pot on the stove hissed in the background. Forgotten. In that moment, the empire he'd built felt so far away. Grant didn't move. Nia didn't either. Lucas clung to her side, his small hands gripping her apron like he expected her to disappear. The kitchen smelled faintly of burned rice and something else. A scent Grant couldn't name but felt pressing against his chest. Guilt. He had imagined this homecoming so differently. He saw himself sweeping in like the perfect father, hugging his boy, maybe even impressing the new help with how warm and approachable he could be. But this was reality, and reality didn't care for perfect timing. You said he cried at night, Grant finally muttered, his voice quieter now, more human. Why didn't anyone tell me? Nia looked at him like he'd asked why rain was wet. Who would have listened? Sir? You were in Geneva or Dubai or wherever people like you go when they can't sleep in their own beds. Lucas flinched slightly. Nia caught it and immediately placed a hand on his head, whispering gently, "It's okay, baby. No one's mad at you." "I'm not mad at him," Grant said quickly. "Then show him," Nia said, turning her eyes on Grant. They were sharp now, unafraid. "He's 4. He can't decode your silence. All he knows is you leave and come back with bears instead of hugs." Grant blinked. She wasn't trying to shame him. She was protecting Lucas fiercely, like he was her own blood. That realization landed harder than anything else. "I worked 18-hour days for 4 weeks straight," Grant said, barely above a whisper. "I thought if I secured that one deal, it would pay for his future college, a life with no limits." Nia's voice softened. "But he doesn't understand college, Mr. Ellison. He just wants pancakes on Saturdays. Someone to clap when he jumps off the couch." Lucas looked up at Grant now, teary-eyed, uncertain. "I didn't know," Grant said, lowering his suitcase to the floor. "You didn't ask," Nia replied gently, but without hesitation. A silence passed, heavy and honest. Grant walked to the stool by the kitchen island and sat down. The immaculate suit, the expensive watch, none of it mattered now. He looked at his son, really looked, and noticed the bags under his eyes, the tired way he leaned into Nia's body as if it was a wall that had held him up too many nights. "Lucas," he said gently. His son didn't respond right away, so Grant tried again. This time, he opened his arms. Lucas hesitated, then moved. He didn't run like Grant had imagined weeks ago. He stepped forward slowly, like someone learning to trust again. When he reached his father's arms, he didn't throw himself in. He melted into the embrace as if testing the warmth first, needing to know it was real. Grant wrapped his arms around him, squeezing tight. "I'm sorry, buddy. I didn't know how lonely you were." Lucas whispered, "Don't make her leave." Grant looked at Nia, her eyes filled again, but she didn't wipe the tears. She stood rooted, her fingers twisting the apron fabric at her side. "I don't want her to leave either," Grant said softly. Nia's lips parted, stunned. "Please stay," he said, not just as the maid, but as someone who cares about him. Maybe as someone who can help me learn how." Her expression shifted, cautious, confused, and then slowly warm. "I don't want to cross any lines," she said quietly. "Cross them," Grant replied, "if that's what it takes for him to feel safe again." The pot on the stove bubbled. The burned rice still clung to the bottom, forgotten. But nobody moved to fix it. The food didn't matter. Grant reached for the teddy bear from the suitcase and handed it to Lucas. "I brought this for you, but I should have brought myself sooner." Lucas didn't let go of him, and for the first time in weeks, he didn't cry. Nia watched them both and exhaled slowly, the tension in her back loosening. Her arms finally fell to her sides. For a long time, she had felt like a ghost in this house, someone whose care existed only in the shadows. But now, in this moment, she was visible, valued. The next morning, the house felt different. Grant woke up not to a silent, sterile home, but to the faint, cheerful sound of a child's laughter from the kitchen. He quickly dressed, forgoing his usual suit for a simple pair of jeans and a polo shirt. As he entered the kitchen, he saw Nia making pancakes on the griddle, her back to him. Lucas was sitting at the island, his small legs swinging, a wide grin on his face. "Watch this, Nia," Lucas said, holding a small toy car. He pushed it off the edge of the island, and it clattered to the floor. Crash! I saved the town. Wow, you're a superhero, Nia said, turning to him with a smile. She didn't seem to notice Grant at first. Her face, no longer tear-streaked, was bright and animated. She pointed at his toy. What's that car's name? Does it have a special power? Grant stood in the doorway, a spectator to a scene he'd never been part of before. He had always hired people to manage these moments, to be the stand-ins for a life he was too busy to live. He cleared his throat. Nia turned, her smile fading slightly into a more professional, reserved expression. Good morning, sir. I hope you slept well. Grant, he corrected. Please, call me Grant. She hesitated, then nodded. Good morning, Grant. I'm making pancakes. Would you like some? Yes, he said, the word feeling foreign on his tongue. I would. He sat on a stool across from Lucas. The boy looked at him, then at Nia, a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Pancakes, buddy, Grant said, trying to sound normal. Remember? Your favorite. Nia makes them like Mom used to, Lucas said quietly, his eyes fixed on the bubbling batter. The words hung in the air, heavy and sharp. Grant's first wife, Lucas's mother, had died in a car accident when Lucas was just a baby. He had rarely spoken of her, a painful memory he kept locked away. He had assumed Lucas was too young to remember, but a child's memory is not just about facts. It's about feelings and smells and the comfort of a familiar routine. She does, Nia said softly, her spatula flipping a pancake with expert ease. A little cinnamon and a secret ingredient. But it's not a secret anymore. She winked at Lucas. It's love. Grant watched the exchange, his own heart aching with a mix of loss and new understanding. He had been so focused on providing a future for Lucas that he had failed to give him a present. I'm sorry, he said, the apology directed at both of them. For everything. You're here now? Nia said simply, placing a plate of golden pancakes in front of him. That's what matters. That evening, after Lucas had been tucked into bed and had not asked for Nia to sing to him, Grant found her in the study, arranging books on the shelf. The room was his sanctuary, filled with leather-bound books and mahogany furniture. It was a place he felt in control. Tonight, however, it felt different. Nia, he said, leaning against the doorframe. Can we talk for a moment? She turned, a book in her hand. Of course, Grant. I want to understand, he began. Tell me about Lucas, about what I missed. She set the book down. It's not my place to. It is, he insisted. You saw him when I didn't. You were here. What was it like? Nia took a deep breath. He's a good boy, Grant, but he was so lonely. He would play with his toys and talk to them as if they were people. He'd make up stories about you, about how you were a superhero who saved countries. He wanted to believe you would be here. Grant felt a lump form in his throat. I was a superhero, he said, his voice barely a whisper. But I was saving the wrong world. He had nightmares almost every night. Nia continued, her voice soft. Not monsters, but empty space. He would wake up and cry for his mommy, and then when he realized she wasn't there, he would just say, Daddy is gone again. The last nanny, Ray, she just gave him a glass of water and told him to go back to sleep. She was professional, just like you wanted. I never wanted that, Grant said, his hand clenched into a fist. I don't know what I thought, that a safe home and a good school would be enough. A house is not a home, Grant, Nia said, her eyes gentle but firm. It's the people inside it that make it so. She told him about the little things, the way Lucas loved to hide in the pantry, the way he laughed when she made a face, the way he refused to eat anything but chicken nuggets unless she pretended they were dinosaur bones. She spoke with a warmth and intimacy that made Grant feel like a stranger in his own son's life. I just wanted to thank you, Grant said, his voice thick with emotion, for being here for him. I was a maid, Nia said simply. It was my job. No, Grant shook his head. It wasn't. You saved him. And maybe you saved me too. She didn't answer with words. She just gave him a small, tired smile. Over the next few weeks, Grant's life changed completely. He canceled his trip to Tokyo and his flight to Rome. He told his assistant to put a hold on all international travel for the foreseeable future. His business partners were furious, but for the first time in his life, Grant didn't care. He started waking up early to make breakfast with Lucas and Nia. He learned that his son preferred crunchy toast to soft pancakes and that he insisted on wearing his shoes on the wrong feet, a quirk the previous nannies had always tried to correct. He found himself laughing more than he had in years. He and Nia developed a comfortable rhythm. They talked about Lucas's day, about school, and about the little jokes they shared with him. One afternoon, Grant found Nia sitting on the floor of the living room, a stack of bills in her lap. Her brow was furrowed in concentration. "Is everything all right?" he asked. She jumped, startled. "Oh, yes, just personal stuff. I'm sorry. I'll finish up later." "No, stay," Grant said, sitting on the couch. "What is it?" She hesitated, then sighed. "It's the hospital bills for my mother. She had a long illness. The insurance didn't cover everything, and, well, it's just a lot." "Let me help," Grant said immediately. Nia shook her head. "No, I couldn't. This is my responsibility. And Lucas's well-being is my responsibility," Grant said. "And you have done more to secure that than anyone has. Consider it a bonus. A thank you. I'm not doing this for money, Grant," she said, her voice firm. "I'm doing this for Lucas. He's a good boy." "I know," Grant said. "And so are you. Let me help. It's the least I can do." He reached for the bills, but she held them close. "Nia, please, let me help you." She looked at him, then at the bills, then back at him. "Okay," she said softly. "Thank you." That night, Grant went online and paid off every single one of her mother's hospital bills. He also set up a trust for her, ensuring she would never have to worry about money again. He didn't tell her. He just wanted to do it. Later that night, after Lucas had fallen asleep in his father's lap, Grant stepped into the hallway to find Nia wiping the stove. She turned as he approached. "I know this wasn't the job you expected," he said. "It's not," she agreed. "But it's the job I needed." He nodded. "If you ever want something more, training, school, whatever, you'll have my support. Just promise me one thing." "What's that?" "Don't stop being who you were today. For him." Nia smiled, tired but real. "I won't. I couldn't if I tried." As Grant walked back toward the living room, he paused and looked over his shoulder. "Nia." "Yes. Thank you for saving my son." She didn't answer with words. She just nodded once and turned back to the stove where a new pot of rice had just begun to simmer. The burned rice still clung to the bottom, forgotten. But it no longer mattered. The food was just food. What had been cooked in this kitchen was so much more. It was a new beginning.